Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I have got a filmmaking team with me today. I actually know them as the filmmaking team that brought a film to the very first festival that I ever was that programmer of. That was Ghostland Boys. And the team I'm talking about is Chris McElroy and Corey Schmalzle. And these two young men, actually in 2016, how old were you guys?
I was 22.
I was 20.
I had just turned 23.
And I was just about to turn 22. I was 21.
Right, 21, 22, 23. And you made this rad, super independent film. And it was the first festival that we ran. And I just have nothing but good thoughts about it. And you two were unbelievably cool sports and cinema fans. I think you attended more screenings than anyone during that festival. And it's funny because I kind of want to change the audience award now from the film that audiences love to the filmmaker who's in the audience the most. Like, because that's what matters, right? If they support people.
We'll retroactively accept it.
Yeah. And I could make it. I'll send you the laurels later. Which that's why not? But just to make it clear for everybody, besides that film in 2016, 4 years later, you came to Film Invasion Los Angeles with another feature film called American Sci-Fi, which I love. I once again, you guys grew in every way possible as filmmakers. I'll share the duties here are Chris and Corey co-write everything. They co-produce everything. Chris directs. You both act. And
when needed.
When needed. Kind of Kevin Smithy in a way, like you step in when, you don't want to be the leads. Well, you were the leads in Ghostland.
I was the lead in American Sci-Fi.
Which was not intentional.
Necessity, yeah. It happened last minute.
I guess that's true. You were the lead, although I kind of see you were the male lead, but the female lead was...
Yeah.
She was
I was supporting, but I had a bigger role in American Sci-Fi than I did. Ghostland Boys, I had a bit part, one scene in each act, I guess.
That's true. All right, so I am just going to say that, so these two gentlemen have made 2 feature films that have been at the festivals that I program, which means none of their work can get into the Discover Indie Film TV series, but I'm going to mention it anyway because there's this TV series that was born out of the podcast that is an anthology of all the best short films that we've had. So it just puts them together into 10-episode seasons. We've got 4 seasons. So if you love indie film and you're listening to this, you should definitely check it out on Amazon Prime Video. Just search for Discover Indie Film and have a good time with it. Chris and Corey's films aren't in there, although I got to tell you, sometimes I think about the people who self-distribute. Maybe there should be a series where it's all super indie features, but done like a TV series where it's a season of 5 features just to take people through them and make them binge them.
Well, and even with Ghostland Boys, when we were writing, it was very episodic. So that's something that could even be broken down. And that was kind of the intention through the writing process, was keeping it episodic like that.
Oh, yeah. You guys all, you kind of had an idea. Well, before we talk about it, we're into origin stories here on this podcast. And I prepped you for that. So who wants to go first? Who wants to start with his life story? And we'll get to where you guys met and... All right, I think it's you, Corey.
Corey can go. Yeah.
I can lead us off. So I'm from Pennsylvania in the Poconos, right outside Scranton. And so growing up, I kind of was forced to be an Office fan just by proximity. And it was a pretty small town. The town that I'm from, Hawley, had about 2,000 people in it. So not big at all. And as I, got older, I found myself gravitating more towards the sciences and math, engineering, and all of that. But when I was in middle school, actually, I guess it was elementary school, Lost came out in 2004. So that was that was kind of the moment for me where entertainment and especially for me, TV clicked. I would spend, starting from the time that I was 10 on, I would spend weeks and weekends on the forums and listening to the very early version of podcasts, kind of breaking down that, and to the point where it got where my college essay for my applications was all about Lost and the different books that I had read because of it. So I think that really opened the door to what film and TV could be. Chris and I met at a cross-country running camp in Colorado. I ran cross-country all through high school. In my 9th grade year, I had a cousin who, she was a senior when I was in 8th grade. She had just graduated, but she had gone to this camp in Colorado, and I went once she graduated, kind of took her place. And while we were out there, Chris also started going to the camp. We weren't roommates that first year, but we became roommates subsequent years of going to camp. And that Chris was really like the first person that I met that, I had friends that were into entertainment, but there wasn't really anybody I met until Chris that really like lived and breathed that language. And, we would have conversations about movies and kind of making movies even in our like heads at the time, and just like kind of joking around about stuff. So I think it was from that moment on was when I kind of realized, maybe there's a way forward to actually doing this professionally, or at least pursuing that hobby.
Very cool. And I'm just going to chime in that first season or two of Lost, I was on those boards too. I just found that show so compelling and fascinating, and everyone's theories on everything, and people pulling down maps off this, freezing. I think back then it was probably VHS.
Yeah.
And freezing the VHS recording and then taking a picture of the map and studying the map. Like Lost was something else.
I've got grainy photos printed out, even still back home that I stole from the forums or all of that. So yeah, I was definitely in that community.
All right. I got your back on that.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, you want to get us up to your point at Cross Country Camp?
So I was raised in a town called Kingsport, Tennessee, which is northeast. It's a mountain town. It's a little bigger than where Corey grew up, but it's not huge. It was like 30,000. And there's only like one high school. So everybody pretty much knows everybody and not a lot to do. So me and my buddies all made videos because they were funny, and YouTube had just kind of like started. And I remember I saw King Kong and I wanted to become a stop motion animator. And so me and my friends would build puppets and we'd make claymation videos and stuff, all through like middle school and high school. And then, high school, I went to cross country camp out in Colorado, and I met this guy, Corey, who, same as he kind of said about me, he was the first person I had met who was like obsessed with media, and it was so funny. Like everything was cinematic to Corey. Every moment in his life, he would try to make it like a movie, or he'd be like, this is just like that one time in the Goonies, or this is just like in Die Hard. He would say stuff like that all the time. He'd be like, this is so weird. It's just like a movie. And it really was. It was funny. I mean, and so he introduced me to a lot of movies I had never really cared about. Like, I want to say Breakfast Club. Corey would quote The Breakfast Club like crazy. We would go to the Walmart in Colorado and we'd buy like the discount DVDs. Yeah.
And the one that I remember that I still have was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. We've got that on DVD just because it was $2 at Walmart.
Heavily influenced me. I think I had seen it before I met Corey, but Corey would just talk about that movie all the time. And obviously American Sci-Fi has a lot of Bill and Ted influence in it. There was one year I brought the Dollars trilogy to camp, and I think every waking moment we had where we could be watching, because those movies are long. If you've never seen, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is like a 3.5 hour movie, and every minute we weren't like supposed to be at like a lecture or a meal or a run, we were watching these Clint Eastwood movies. And I think that's all we did for like the whole week.
It was Clint Eastwood and Arrested Development. Arrested Development was the big one that we would alternate. So it was quite the double feature.
Right. So this camp you'd run during the days, and then your evenings were pretty free, it sounds like.
Honestly, there wasn't a lot of free time because we would wake up and do a morning run and then go to like a recovery type thing where we would like stretch or ice or whatever. And then we go to some sort of lecture on training and nutrition or something. Then we go to lunch. Then we do like another lecture. Then we do an afternoon run. They were honestly pretty packed, but we found a lot of time to goof off. And it always kind of reminded me of Community. If you've ever watched it, Corey was like the Abed to my Troy. You know, he was the one obsessed with everything's like a sitcom, everything's like a movie, and I was just kind of tagging along with him on these adventures. That
sounds like a really good time.
It was. Yeah. Obviously, you know, lifelong friends from it.
And you were definitely into recent classic cinema, like, you know, Breakfast Club and Bill and Ted really were before your time. So you were Corey sort of looking at film history in a way, and the Eastwood too, obviously.
Yeah. My dad actually did this thing with our family where he wanted us to watch every Best Picture winner ever. So we like all from like when I was in sixth grade until high school, we never made it all the way through because like starting in the like 70s and 80s, the Best Picture winners start to get a little uncomfortable to watch with your family. So we didn't, but I watched all the old ones. And then Corey introduced me to like 80s cinema kind of. So I've had like a pretty full experience when it comes to watching all eras.
For me, it was probably starting with the years that Chris didn't watch the Best Picture. Like that was kind of when my interest in film. So like really like the mid to late 70s and on, and then especially the 80s growing up because I had that Abed complex of kind of always wanting to be in a teen movie. And so I think that really influenced a lot of what I was watching and oftentimes rewatching.
And you were teenagers, so it makes sense to focus on that kind of.
Yeah. I mean, those movies the John Hughes movies are timeless in a lot of ways. And when you're at running camp where you're supposed everything's kind of like a summer movie, you know, it lends itself to watching those movies. And, you know, we would play like games like the ninja game at night. Like there were all these camp type games that
and camp always culminated in a dance. And so there was always like asking a girl to a dance. And like there was always these things. Yeah, it was very stereotypical.
There was always the camp. Corey always had a camp crush.
Okay, well.
You know?
I was about to ask if it was a co-ed camp because that ups all sorts of stakes.
There were certainly stakes in our mind. Looking back, it was probably nothing, but at the time, it was everything.
For sure. Yeah. All right, so you're sharing your love of film and TV, but the kind of TV you're into is, you know, I'll be snobby. I'll say that like Lost and Arrested Development are like way better than your average television series, especially back then. Like that was when they were first deciding to make an effort to write good TV. Yeah. Because TV had always really just been, let's make crap that we can run ads during.
Right. And I think we were at such a special time too, kind of coming up where, yes, that was how it was before, but because, you know, Lost premiered when we were 10, like there wasn't really, I didn't know anything really pre that. So like it was so exciting, but also it felt so normal for television to start to push those boundaries and kind of become more cinematic because, you know, yes, there were still 2.5 Men in the Chuck Lorre multicams that were on, but like those were, even at the time, they felt like they were on their way out, and there were more exciting things on the horizon. But then, of course, obviously, I think the films of the time were also starting to push the edge, and especially on the indie front, those were just as influential to me, I think, as the 80s movies were also the indie films of the early 2000s, like Napoleon Dynamite or something, that I think carries a really similar sensibility.
Yeah, so my question was going to be, you shared your love of film. Did you ever like start throwing ideas back and forth for writing something, or when did that start?
I think we always kind of goofed around with like ideas. But obviously Corey lived in Pennsylvania, I lived in Tennessee, so we never like tried to shoot anything or wanted to shoot anything together. But we would always be like, oh, you know, they should make a movie about this. They should make a movie about that. And then I went to film school at Baylor University, and so like film was going to be my career. That's what I wanted. And I started writing Ghostland Boys. I guess it was my junior year. Yeah. And I remember like Corey and I had stayed in touch just because we're good friends, you know. And I was like, you know, Corey's got really good sensibilities. He likes the same kind of stuff I have. I'm going to send him my first act and see what he thinks and get his ideas on it. And then he came back with all these great notes and all these ideas. And then I was like, you want to help me write this? And we then wrote the rest of the movie together, and then Corey did a whole rewrite on it.
And at the time for me, like I was a sophomore at Lehigh University in Pennsylvania, and I was studying mechanical engineering. And so, you know, it had never really been an option to pursue that in any meaningful capacity, because the idea was always just, you know, got to go to school, get a good job, all of that. So when Chris started to talk to me about what he was doing at film school, it got me so excited. And I was stubborn where I liked my school. I didn't want to transfer, but there wasn't, you know, that kind of film program or anything. So I just stayed in engineering, and while everybody was kind of doing their own projects, you know, Chris and I were doing like Skypes or whatever it was at the time. I guess it was Skype, and like writing projects that we would, one day hope to shoot. And that ended up being Ghostland Boys.
Yeah. And I started writing Ghostland Boys with the intent to shoot it the summer, junior and senior year, and then edit it my senior year. Because the year prior, this is a really cool thing that Baylor does, is every summer they shoot a movie as a class. And so I worked on that the summer prior, and it is like, it's not the way they make a movie in Hollywood, you know, but they make a movie. Like, you learn what you actually need to do to make a movie, you know, how to work the camera, all this stuff. So after that summer of making the Baylor movie, it was this movie called Blur Circle. I remember I finished that and I was like, you know, I could do that like in my hometown if I wrote a script like that. So that's why I decided to start writing it. And then when Corey got on board and was like, we should actually shoot this, I was like, yeah, we totally can shoot this. We kept it low budget intentionally. We wrote all the locations based on stuff we knew we had. What else? Robert Rodriguez, El Mariachi was a big reason we made that movie. I remember I watched El Mariachi literally like probably a month before I started writing Ghostland Boys, and had never really read about it or knew much about it. And then was like, oh my gosh, if he can make a movie in the 90s, you know, on film, then I can make a digital movie today, you know? So there was a lot leading up to us writing Ghostland Boys that led us to believe it was possible, where I think a lot of people would get turned down and think that making a movie is way harder than it probably actually is. We were naive, and so that helped us, you know?
Yeah, you didn't have a ton of people telling you, I tried to make a movie and it totally blew my wallet and I ended up with nothing. Like you didn't have any negative things coming your way.
Yeah.
You probably like Clerks too, right? Probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, we can get Clerks was a really big influence on American sci-fi, just from a structural point of view. So yeah, that was definitely kind of in our mindset of when we started shooting. And I think so. We ended up shooting Ghostland Boys in Chris's hometown in Tennessee that summer. It was summer of 2015. Yeah. And so we did that. It was, I don't know, it was like a 9-day, 10-day shoot, maybe 2 weeks.
It was 14 days.
14. Okay. Yeah.
I remember American Sci-Fi was a 10-day shoot. And I was like, yeah, we did it faster. That's amazing. We beat our record.
That's amazing. I mean, I guess, you know what I didn't ask you to say up front was, is there somewhere where people can watch American Sci-Fi right now?
Yes, there is. And we'll plug this at the end, but it is.
You can plug it at the end, but you might as well plug it now. I don't know if you care about spoilers or not, but I can tell everyone, when you watch American Sci-Fi, you would never think you shot it in 10 days. I mean, if anything, I happen to know the story that, right, Corey, your family had that facility?
Yeah. Our family has like a fun park in Pennsylvania.
So the fact that you have a fun park, I assumed, okay, cool. So they had 2-3 months to get this shit done because there's a lot to it. And the fact that you got it done in 10 days, my hands are flying from my brain because that's pretty shocking information. And I believe I heard it before.
Yeah, it was shocking during too. Like as we were exactly what we were saying, like we didn't know better. Like we really didn't know better, especially after Ghostland Boys, to try to do 9 or 10 days shoot.
Yeah, it was exhausting. I don't think we'd do it again.
Yeah, there were no breaks. Like you just day and night, you couldn't stop.
There was a planned day off. We were going to do 5 days on, a day off, and then 5 more days. But we had a problem with the camera sensor. On one day, it had like dust on it. The parking lot scene, actually, if you watch the movie, there's a parking lot scene where the spaceship crashes. There was so much dust in that parking lot, it somehow got into the camera. And we were watching the footage that night, and there were all these spots that we didn't notice as we were shooting it. And I ran the numbers. I tried to figure out if I could paint them out frame by frame. And I was like, let's just use our off day and reshoot it. Yeah. So that's what we did. And then we ended up catching up, though, and we didn't have to use an extra day at the end. We almost finished it in 9 days. But there was one shot I wanted to get on the 10th day.
And we didn't have much of a choice either because, we had people living in my parents' house, staying with us during that 2-week period. And then Chris and I were both moving to LA. Once we finished production, there was going to be a week or so. And then I had just graduated. Chris had graduated the year before. So the plan was just to move to LA and stay with Chris's now wife's family until we had it. So we really kind of had to get on the road to get going. So we gave ourselves a hard out that didn't give us an option for failure.
Yeah, and you couldn't go back and shoot during the edit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No pickups whatsoever.
No pickup. There was no way we could get the cast was all volunteer. That's why it had to be 10 days too, because you don't want to make people miss out on their jobs and their lives for too long. The whole cast was super, super gracious to help out.
And good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hannah, the lead, and Tucker, who plays Jeff, they both road tripped up with me in my car. And
they were both in Ghostland Boys. They're part of our repertoire, our troupe, our rotating.
Yeah. I don't know if we have a name yet.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah.
The Ghostland Boys, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, they both drove up with me. They stayed in Corey's house. We were lucky because they're a little younger than us. They're about a year behind us. Well, Corey's a year.
They were my
your age. Yeah, and so they still had like they didn't have a job yet. They were still looking. They had just graduated college. I think Tucker had an internship that was starting the next month, so we got lucky with that. Hannah started her job like 2 weeks later. So we had to get it done, and that was the only time we could do it. So we did it.
Yeah. Understood. And you got it done. You got a feature 90 minutes, right? Done in 10 days.
84 minutes.
84. Fair enough. Still fair to call it an hour and a half feature.
Yeah. Unlike Ghostland Boys, with American Sci-Fi, I actually cut some stuff. I had some restraint. Ghostland Boys, it was like I just used everything because I had to. That was the only way to make the story work. At least that's what I thought at the time. It might still be the case, but everything we shot in Ghostland Boys is in that movie. American Sci-Fi, we cut some stuff out here and there, just some fat, some fluff. Honestly, nothing that would be noteworthy of an extra scene or a bonus feature on a DVD or something. It's all just crap.
That shows that you grew as a film. I mean, everything about American Sci-Fi shows growth from Ghostland. So, and then that's nice to hear. I mean, if you're going to edit your own work, you've got to learn to cut it like you can't fall in love with the smell of your own.
Yeah. So Corey and I lived together while I was editing American Sci-Fi, and I think that helped a lot with the edit too. Because like Ghostland Boys, I was in Texas at school and he was in Pennsylvania, and I would send him some stuff that I had, and he, would get back to me maybe like a week later or something. But with American Sci-Fi, it was like every night I'd be like, check this out, check out what I just did. And he'd be like, oh, well, that sucks. You need to cut that part out, or you need to cut to this shot. And so it was actually pretty beneficial that we lived together through the edit of that.
And when he says I helped, I didn't physically help whatsoever. I would be like, yeah, maybe I can do it while you're working. He's like, you don't know how to edit, and he was right. I would have botched it, so it was his job to finish.
I do remember if you recall at the beginning of Ghostland Boys, there's an opening credits that's pretty extensive, or at least the version that played at Film Invasion was pretty long. And Corey told me time and time again, you need to cut that in half. The opening credits are so long. I loved them. I worked so hard on them that I didn't want to cut them at the time. And then when we lived together, we put Ghostland Boys on Amazon. And so I was like, are there any like final touches? Like we recolor graded it. I replaced all the footage with the 4K versions because I still had those. Like, just kind of
all of the guns you replaced with walkie-talkies.
Yeah, there were a couple of things like there was one shot where you could see gaff tape on the ground, like an X that we had put, and I just painted it out. Stuff like that. Small little George Lucas type edits that we did to Ghostland Boys before we put it on Amazon. And I remember Corey was like, you got to cut down the opening credits. I won't stand for it anymore. And I was like, you know what? If you know what you're doing, then you got to cut it down yourself. And I told him how to use the cut tool. And I think he literally just cut every other frame out and then stuck them together. Because it's like a cartoon kind of thing. So it worked if you just cut every other frame. And he was right. You get the same amount of pleasure out of that half as long opening credits as you would from the 5-minute version that existed before.
Fair enough. It is cool. I mean, that's one of the cool things about indie cinema and digital editing and stuff is going back and changing it is totally doable now. I mean, my mind goes back to when I was your age, and it was the late 80s, early 90s, and you went to answer print, like you cut negative and glued it together, and like if you wanted to change anything, it was absurd. Like you were stuck. So it's really cool that you can go back and play with it. You can do as many, you got a free weekend, the wife goes away for the weekend, you could be like, you know what, I'm I'm going to cut Ghostland. I'm going to take 7 minutes out of Ghostland just for fun this weekend.
I mean, so one thing is, when I edited, I was in college still, and I didn't know anything about editing, really. I mean, I like edited stupid YouTube videos up to that point, but I had never edited a feature film. I edited some more serious short films, but nothing amazing, you know? And so then when I graduated college, I worked as an editor for like 2.5 years before I got tired of it and didn't want to edit anymore. But so I grew as an editor a whole lot right before we put it on Amazon. So I knew all these things that I didn't know, like the whole movie, it was a 1080 movie, but we shot in 4K, and then my computer couldn't handle it. So I exported all the clips as like QuickTime 1080 videos just to make it work, because I was stupid and thought, I got to do this in college. Like, I thought that's the only way I can edit this movie. And then later, 4 years later, I literally replaced every shot with the original 4K. It was like a 4K restoration is what I did to it. And
that's a ton of work, isn't it?
It took me like 2 days. It wasn't, it wasn't crazy. Yeah. I mean, the audio was still all the same. So I literally just overlaid, all the footage. It actually wasn't that hard at all. All the footage had the same name. So I just deleted all the 1080 versions and told it the 4K versions are the ones to pull.
Oh, and it did it for you?
And then I had to go. Yeah.
And it knew the ins and outs and the time code. Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. And then all I did is I went back and recolor graded from there for a couple days. Yeah. Cool. Which I never would have known how to do 3 years ago in college when I edited it originally. For
sure. So you're out in LA and together, and you're under the same roof, which is fun, especially to do an edit, because you could just put so much time together and work on it. So it gets completed around when? SciFi, American SciFi.
American SciFi. Let's see. We shot it in 2017. First off, the summer of 2017, and because we were in the real world after that it took a lot longer to edit than Ghostland Boys did, and because I'm a better editor, it took longer. It was it finished in 2019?
I think so. Yeah,
it was finished in like July or August 2019, and then we submitted to the dream festivals like Sundance, Tribeca. We wanted to hear back from them just to be sure. Didn't get any of those. So then in January and February, we started entering, no offense, all our other festivals, the non-Sundance. Basically, we entered 3. It was like Sundance, Austin, and I want to say Tribeca. And we didn't get into that. So.
You're supposed to have Toronto on there too, but no worries.
I think maybe
we don't want to do a Canadian festival.
Yeah, screw them.
Yeah. And then it was perfect timing for the pandemic to start right when the festival started accepting us. But I also think there was a silver lining to that, because I think more festivals were willing to program stuff since most of them were online. And so we got into a lot. We got into 14 festivals, and also, we had some fans come out for Ghostland Boys to Film Invasion LA. We probably would have had more now that we live here and have friends here for American SciFi, but all our friends in Pennsylvania and Tennessee and wherever got to watch it when it premiered for Film Invasion.
I remember. I mean, it was honestly, I'm not going to pretend that Film Invasion LA 2020 was like a big deal, but it happened to be perfect timing because it was right when everyone had to figure out what to do during the pandemic because everyone was locked down. And we came up with and my understanding was a lot of festivals were just saying, okay, we're not doing anything and we're just going to announce awards and not give you refunds. And I was like, we have to show the films. So we figured out a way to do that virtually. and it was a huge audience outpouring. Like, I'm pretty sure it was like 40, 50 films had 88,000 unique viewers.
Wow.
And I was like, we would never get 8,000 people in and out of the theater in a 4-day period.
Have you considered like doing it on, like, obviously you want to have the in-person because that's very special and filmmakers care about that, but you should totally keep it online. I don't know. I don't want to tell you how to run your festival, but to tell the truth. So the Sherman Oaks Film Festival this November, you know how we like to send, you know how we like to send out like forms and ask questions and stuff. We actually asked everybody, when we asked them to give us, a poster and a log line and a still photo and all that, we said, should we be a hybrid? Should we be theater only or theater and hybrid and theater and virtual hybrid festival? And I was thinking, no. No one is actually going to want that. And it was 92% positive to be hybrid. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what I would vote for.
Yeah. So we're actually doing it. And now, so we're going to have 8 days in the theater next month. And I know it's hard to believe. And of those, so far, over 90%. So we're doing, this is actually my idea, and I'm very proud of it. We're doing basically a week at the theater. And then when those end, we're going to do a week virtual so that it won't be like, oh, I'm not going to go to the theater tonight because I can stay home and watch them. Yeah. So it's going to be a separate week. And over 90% of the people who are showing at the theater are like, I want you to show me the week after a virtual also. So
the outreach that we had for when we showed at Film Invasion was like, there were people that were like reaching out to me that I would have never in a million years thought would have watched the movie, that I was either not close with or just it didn't seem like their type of thing. And, from Facebook, social media, they saw it, and I guess it really the fact that they could just so easily do that really resonated with them, and it helped us reach an audience that I think we never would have come close to in any other scenario.
Yeah. And because it was such a last minute, because our final deadline was March 15th, and I think it was the week after that the world shut down, and it was that final week before a final deadline, it was like, is something happening here? Like we were starting to wonder. And so because of that, we did that philosophy of like pay if you want, right? It was like you could buy a free ticket or you could donate, or you could buy a ticket and give a gift to the festival. And so that I think that really boosted viewership too, because cheap people could be cheap and people who value your work could help out. We dropped that now because I think after a year of virtual festivals, all the filmmakers are like, we want it to be behind a paywall.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But at that time, it was like, I just felt it was unfair because we were we had literally just canceled the theater reservation. I'm like, can't charge people to sit at home and look at their computer.
Yeah. I think it was a good time to just have content available to people. Everybody was bored. Everybody was a little depressed. Like they wanted to watch stuff, and that was all they could do really at the time. So I almost wonder, like, could we get as many people to watch American Sci-Fi if it came out this year, now that everybody's back to work and busy again? I know like all my friends watched it because they had nothing else to do. Which
I can tell you that we were forced to do 3 virtual festivals during COVID, and viewership went down every 6 months. It was like cut in half. So like, and we had more films and like more filmmakers to like try to promote themselves. And it was like, wow. Like, I think we went from 8,000 uniques to 2,000. And by the way, 2,000 is great, but after you've had 8,000, you kind of feel like a letdown.
Yeah. I remember the Zoom like meetups for Film Invasion that were awesome, and everybody was on. There were a ton of people on Zoom meetings that got into the festival that year,
That was,
and we all were
couldn't
like,
do that mixer. We couldn't do a mixer in person. We had a mixer on Zoom, and Zoom was still fresh. There was no Zoom burnout. So I think there was like 30, 40 people would show up and talk about their films.
Probably more than would have shown up to the actual mixer. And I think everybody was like just eager to talk to people and make friends and talk about their movies because there wasn't anything else to do at the time.
And it was it was super cool because everyone could talk to each other and then sign off for that mixer and watch the film of the person they just talked to. Like it was right there to look at.
Yeah. And I did that for a few of them and then, messaged the person, said that was awesome. I liked the part that you told me about and how difficult it was to make when you told me that you did a great job, And I don't know if I would have ever talked to them had I just watched their movie in person in the theater, done the Q&A afterward and then gone home, Yeah.
And if you'd been, when you're at the mixer and there's like, 30, 40 people in the room, you don't get to meet everybody.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of those people who's really good at working a room, which I am not. I mean, I'm forced to as the programmer, but it's, I'm not very good at schmoozing, but I've learned over the years. And all the films were really good, yours included. I'm super proud of our virtual lineups. Yeah,
I mean, our first that was the inaugural Film Invasion was the one Ghostland Boys was at, right? And I remember thinking, like, Corey and I literally watched almost every film in that festival because we didn't live in LA at the time, so we were like, let's just make a trip out of it, and we stayed the whole weekend and watched them. And we thought like they were pretty good, like they were impressive for their budgets and everything, and really good short films that year. If I remember, there was one that still like burned into my memory. But then I can't remember the name, but it was this guy had hand painted over every frame of this short film. It was like robots, and they plugged in with a VCR.
That was the short film that played before ours, I think.
It was the one that played right before ours. Yeah.
Wait, was it the one he painted over? It was like
literally every frame he painted over in his garage.
Was it did a couple have sex?
Yes.
Oh, that's the past inside the present.
Yes.
That was it. Yeah.
It's actually in season 1 of the Discovery Into Film TV series.
Oh, wow.
If anyone's that film is rad.
It's amazing. I mean, the artistry blew my mind. I remember one of our buddies came to watch Ghostland Boys, and he was watching that, and he's like, I don't think this is the right movie because it played right before Ghostland Boys. And I remember I saw him like walk out right when it kind of ended, and I walked out and was like, hey, you're in the right theater. That was just a short film they played before ours. And he came back in. But I remember, that was just insane that he hand painted over, and it looked great. I mean, every frame was literally a painting. It was amazing.
Yeah, that film was ridiculously cool. Amusingly, when Amazon nailed the TV series for, they said, gratuitous nudity and violence, because like The Boys isn't violent, but when they nailed us and said you can't be free included with Prime anymore, you've got to charge 99 cents an episode or $7.99 a season. Anyway, they left that episode alone. And they tagged one where like there was a guy's bare butt. And I'm like, wow. Like, are you kidding?
It's not. Was it animated? Maybe that's the difference. Is this is animated nudity.
Honestly, the past inside the present is a lot more graphic than you probably remember. The sex.
I remember. I
remember because Chris's parents were there.
My parents were there. We talked about it after. Yeah.
But I remember being very uncomfortable watching it with Chris's parents, but being impressed at the same time.
We kind of had a similar discussion literally that night with my dad and mom, where they were like, yeah, it was really cool that it was all painted and beautiful, like rotoscoping. But man, the sex was a lot. Yeah, it's an interesting movie. This story, might not be for everyone, but
Hey, you know what? I have a confession, which is the first Film Invasion, the month or two before, my dad was. So my dad died, and actually they resuscitated him, and I was helping him through rehab every day, so one of our board members jumped in and did the programming and paired all the films. So actually that is the one festival out of 6 years of Film Invasion Los Angeles and Sherman Oaks Film Festival. That's the one where I didn't pick the films. And honestly, there were films that I saw the first time in the theater and then did the Q&A. Because I was just so overwhelmed with my dad's health at the time.
I would have never known. You're a great host. You seem to know all the films pretty well. I mean, I'm assuming you watched them all as they played. You know?
I did watch quite a few of them.
Anyway, what I was saying was the films were all really great that year. And then this past year, I feel like the quality is just even better. I don't know if filmmaking has gotten better in general, if the people that have found Film Invasion are just better filmmakers now. Not to knock anybody from 2016, but
no, I wouldn't knock 2016 either. But I can honestly say that we get 8 to 10 times the submissions we got that first year.
Okay.
So we're choosing that first year. We were probably choosing from like 150 films, and Sherman Oaks Film Festival that's next month we got over 800 submissions.
Wow.
That's great.
Wow.
So it breaks my heart because there's like some, sometimes I love, well, you know me. I sometimes I'll love like kind of a flawed little film that's its heart is in the right place. And like, there's really no room for it anymore. Like we sort of are, I mean, I'm not going to say we're too big for cool indies because trust me, there's really cool, super indie films. In fact, there's one, you're going to have to watch this one called Midnight Science. It's so up your American sci-fi alley.
Yeah.
But the quality's higher because we have more submissions to choose from.
And Chris and I, we've always kind of known, I think like something like Ghostland Boys, which was always meant to be kind of just hyper stylized in its approach to indie filmmaking and very indie. And I think that's a result of the cost, but also our tastes at the time. Like that's something that I don't know if, I think we were just so lucky at the time and with the circumstances to have had it played so that we could then have American sci-fi. I mean, I think that's a great example of something that maybe would have been overlooked among 800 other movies at the time.
I specifically remember my strategy when I submitted to Film Invasion. I was looking for first-year film festivals because I was like, everybody wants to go to a festival that's been around for a couple of years and has good reviews. And I now, with American Sci-Fi, I did that because now, we had upped the game a bit. But for Ghostland Boys, I was like, I just want to get it to play somewhere. So we entered a ton of first-time festivals, first-year inaugural festivals.
Which is a good strategy. It's a good strategy.
Because for that exact reason, we figured less people would be submitting, Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of like we've grown. Like, I think the movies have grown with Film Invasion to an extent, right? Where I think Ghostland Boys is indicative of the first year, and American Sci-Fi is, I mean, at least the trajectory is closer to where you guys are now.
Absolutely. The festivals have grown, and I'm not going to hesitate to say that you've certainly grown. So American Sci-Fi, which does kick ass and is a great love letter. Both films are love letters to indie cinema in a way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So have you guys been writing more since? Or should I ask how was the rest of your virtual, because damn it, you finished your film and, those big guys turned you down at the end of 2019 and then you spent 2020. I mean, there wasn't an in-person festival for 15 months.
Yeah. we've been slower, I think, just because we have jobs. But we did recently shoot a short comedy film for some of Corey's friends. We didn't write it, but
yeah, I've started working with helping out with a sketch comedy group here in LA, and they had been doing a lot of kind of live shows pre-pandemic, and during the pandemic, it was kind of figuring out what their next step will be. And I think everybody being home, it really brought social media comedy and sketch comedy kind of came to the forefront a little bit online, more so than I think maybe it had been pre-pandemic. And so we've been talking about ways to shoot sketches to air online with also maybe airing live. And so, yeah, I had Chris help out with, I asked Chris to help out with one of our sketches, which was a parody of the Joker, but instead of the Joker, it focuses on the Hamburglar, the McDonald's character. So it's meant to be kind of like a trailer parody of the Joker, but focusing on the Hamburglar and Grimace. So we had a lot of fun doing that.
And are you performing improv, or you just became friends with some improv peeps?
I've become friends with some. Again, it's kind of similar to what we did with Ghostland Boys and American Sci-Fi. I appear when needed. We just had our first live performance back at a backyard a month ago. And I was live on stage when I was needed to be. I do have a cameo in the Hamburglar sketches as Grimace, but I'm unrecognizable. So I'm there when needed.
Are you both still in LA?
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys could have come in person. We could have sat across.
Yeah.
Right when
honestly,
I say that, your Zoom freezes a little.
7:45. I said I got home right at 7:45. I am a working stiff now. I'm deep into the film industry, 12, sometimes 14-hour days, sometimes longer.
Oh, well, doing... you want to say what you're doing?
Yeah, I can. So I've actually... Let's see. I've been doing the production office stuff for the past couple years. I worked as an office PA on Tenet, actually, in 2019. And then worked with that same crew as a production secretary on Army of the Dead on Netflix. What else? I worked on one other cool thing I want to say. Tacoma FD. So yeah, during the pandemic, when the pandemic started, I started doing COVID test coordinating because every crew, everybody has to be tested per the union guidelines. And I thought I wouldn't like it, but I just took it because I didn't have anything else going on because of the pandemic. And I got on a show called Tacoma FD, which is on True TV. And it's the Broken Lizard guys who obviously big influences with Super Troopers. I think that was a heavy influence on Ghostland Boys. My cameo role in Ghostland Boys is a very, very Super Troopers-y reference. A bike cop with a mustache, poking his nose where it doesn't belong. Anyway, so yeah, I've been a big fan of the Broken Lizard guys pretty much since I saw Super Troopers. And Tacoma FD is their firefighter show. And they called me up and asked if I would do the COVID testing. And because I was a fan, I said yes. And then I ended up loving the job because unlike all my previous jobs, I was kind of in with all the department heads. They all had to go through me. They all, had to ask me questions about how the set could be run. And anytime they hired somebody, they would let me know. So I was constantly communicating with all the very important people on the set. The job was tough, but it was, it was worth it. As far as the camaraderie and the relationships I made on that set. I mean, those guys, the Broken Lizard guys they deserve all the success they get because they really care about their crews and the people that work for them. They don't see the crew as just somebody making their product. They want everybody to have a good time and make a fun video or movie TV show. and to enjoy doing it and love the filmmaking process. It's a very indie feel that is kind of lost on these bigger Hollywood features that I've worked on.
And Ray, who does all their directing, right? He's the member of the troupe who directs. He directed a lot of Arrested Development, I think.
Yes, yeah, Jay, and he does the Goldbergs now. He actually isn't involved in Tacoma FD, okay. But he's involved. They're shooting a new feature, which I can't really talk that much about, but I'm working on their new feature, and he is he's on it, and he's awesome, and they're all the whole gang is awesome. I'm so excited for this new feature. It's going to be on Hulu. So that's all I can say, but check it out when it's out on Hulu, because these guys really, they make films the right way. It's very fun, and it feels like, a group of high school guys with a camcorder in their backyard, just shooting stuff that they came up with on the fly.
Yeah. Congrats on getting in with that, because that's fantastic to have something you enjoy around people you respect. It's huge.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Corey, why don't you talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a little bit more of the office approach, I think, than Chris, who's been on set a lot more than I have. So my first job in LA, I actually kind of owe a lot of how I got into it from Film Invasion, actually, because at that first mixer that we went to after our film aired, I met. There's a guy, and I can't remember his name, unfortunately. He'd done a short film. I think it was called Monsters, starring Ione Skye,
yes.
Which I was so impressed by. And
that was a great one. Yeah, that was an amazing short film.
And talk about my 80s movies influences. Say Anything is one of the all-time greats. And so I was so impressed. And I was talking to him, and I asked him if he had any advice about getting in. And he said, well, if I could do it again, I'd work at an agency. And so it was always kind of in the back of my mind. So when I graduated, after shooting American Sci-Fi, I had gotten a job lined up working at one of the talent agencies. So I worked on a talent desk for a year, on a TV lit desk for a year, and I'm now working in TV development at a network. So it's been a little bit more of the office approach. I don't have to wear a suit anymore. I think when Chris and I were living together, I would have to go in every morning in my suit, and I think I certainly felt like an office stiff. It's gotten a little bit better since then. But yeah, so I'm still involved with everything and really liking the creative processes on that side.
Congrats on that. And I'm just going to say that was Steve Desmond. He was the second person ever interviewed on this podcast.
Oh, wow.
He was number 2.
We're following in good footsteps then.
And he was, we Skyped because he's so busy writing all the time that he couldn't make it over.
Yeah. I owe him a lot.
He talked to us extensively at that mixer. I learned a lot from him too.
Wow. That's really cool. Yeah. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah. He gave us his card. He was the first person we met in Hollywood. I don't know if we haven't really talked to him since, but he gave us a lot of good advice. And
you know what's funny is, I shouldn't say this out loud, but when people talk about networking at festivals, I'm always like, well, it's not like, but the networking is real. I guess the networking is real because even though it was, some people have the idea that you go to Sundance and you walk down the street and someone points at you and says, let's do 5 pictures together. There's some retarded thinking. I'm not supposed to say that. But yeah, you actually got good advice from someone who'd been working in the industry for at least 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was also kind of I've always been, I think like you, I'm not much of a schmoozer or somebody who works the crowd super well. And it felt very much like it was just organic and networking rather than trying to force a connection. So yeah, we owe him a lot.
Very cool. Very cool.
I want to say he was just sitting kind of alone. And we were like, hey, are you here with Film Invasion? He was like, yeah, I did this short film called Monsters. And we had seen it that day. And we were like, oh, that was awesome, dude. And that's kind of how we hit it off. And then we told him about Ghostland Boys, and he was like, yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah, I don't think he attended any other screenings but his own.
Fair enough.
But Monsters was a very good short film.
It was excellent. Yeah, well, that was, you know what I was going to say about the programming of that first year. We were into that goofy idea of like having a short and a feature. And then I learned from getting feedback from people that like, what sucks worse than having your short play before a feature? Like, and then you have to wait 90 minutes for your Q&A. So now we just bite the bullet. You know, obviously it was to put people in seats, but now we bite the bullet on shorts, play with shorts, and features play alone. And if the feature doesn't bring anyone out, so be it. You know, I gave up worrying about audience numbers probably the second or third year, because it's like you just don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully our next one will have a big LA based audience.
Yeah. Well, you two are both based here, so.
Yeah. So like we were saying, I mean, we are still working on stuff. We've got a short film in the works. It's a little slower for our personal projects now, just because we're working. But
real life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But we still find the time. It helps that my wife is a DP and will shoot everything for us, so she's always begging us to write something new. Her mom, I think I might have told you this at some point, but her mom owns a horse ranch out in Santa Clarita. And so ever since I've known her, she's been like, you need to write a Western so we can shoot a Western. And we finally have a Western on the docket that we're going to try to shoot here pretty soon.
Wow, impressive, because that's a challenge. I thought she was going to start encouraging you. Look, just write something that's like 3 pages that we can do and, you know, get done on a Saturday.
Well, this is a Western short, so it'll be Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
We're compromising.
It's 3 scenes, you know.
Yeah, beginning, middle, and end.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
You guys know your structure, your story structure. Well, that's great. And you know what? I'm delighted.
We actually didn't write this one.
Sorry?
I was going to say, we actually didn't write this one. One of my buddies wrote it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Moving out here, we've met a lot of other talented people that have helped us. Like the Hamburglar video. I mean, that was some comic geniuses were involved in that are way funnier than Corey and I have ever been on our own. I wish they had rewritten American Sci-Fi before we shot it, you know?
Could have gotten a punch-up draft.
Yeah.
Oh, the punch-up. Which was Carrie Fisher's forte. Who knew? Well, I was going to say, like, I'm really delighted. This has been a fun conversation for me, because it's great to hear what you're both up to. And you know what? There's nothing that, as a third-generation Los Angelino, I hate when young, enthusiastic people move to L.A. and hate it and leave. Because it's my hometown, you know? Yeah. So I love that you both came here and found a place and found people to work with and collaborate with and enjoy their company probably. And you did all that in spite of a ridiculous global pandemic. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I would say I'm pleased so far. We're still hungry for more. We still have a lot to achieve.
Jury's still out.
But yeah, things are going pretty well.
That's great. All right. Well, do you want to? So I think it's time to tell people where they can see American Sci-Fi.
Yeah, it is on Vimeo. The channel name is American Sci-Fi. It's the one video on the channel, American Sci-Fi. Sci-Fi is one word. Vimeo is really weird, so you can type in American Sci-Fi, and it probably won't come up. But it's on there under the channel American Sci-Fi. And
by channel, it's like a VOD channel?
No, that's like the account name. Like
oh, okay.
Yeah, I can send you a link. I don't know if you can put it in like the.
Yeah. Send me a link and I'll throw it in. You know, every episode of the podcast has is essentially a post on a
cool
on a website. So
I'll send you the link. You'll be happy to know the Film Invasion Laurel is front and center on the
nice
on the thumbnail. Yeah, let's see. Actually, I've got it right in front of me. We put 8 laurels. We got into 14 festivals. I don't know why I only have 8 laurels on the thumbnail, but maybe.
Well, you stuck with the important ones.
Laurels I did worthy, I
yeah, we don't want to devalue any of them.
There was one festival we got into that just had a really long name. It wasn't going to work out.
You know, I start to wonder when there's like too many laurels. 14's probably not too many, but like I've seen a poster with like 40 laurels, and I'm like, I don't even think about how good the film might be. I think, what did you spend on submission fees?
Yeah.
Like, are we talking like you had a $10,000 festival budget just for submissions? Like, it seems extreme to me.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
We spent a third of our budget on submissions. We spent like $1,000, I want to say, on submissions.
For American Sci-Fi?
And we spent like $3,000 total on the whole movie. Yeah.
Yeah. $1,500 on production, and then you doubled that, getting the word out and submitting.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, so I'm not going to say where people can see. Well, yeah, go to the Vimeo channel, American Sci-Fi. Sci-Fi is one word, and you can see their film. I'm saying their film, but I'll say your names: Chris McElroy and Corey Schmalzle. And I am now going to ramble off a bunch of websites. We talked about film. Well, first I'll mention the Discovery Indie Film TV series one last time. People should be nice and go to Amazon Prime Video and search for Discovery Indie Film and watch some of these great, completely independent shorts. They're put together in an anthology. It's really fun. And if you're a really nice person, and you should try to be nice, give it 5 stars. And in fact, this podcast, Discovery Indie Film, subscribe to it and give the podcast 5 stars. You know, I'm going to check how many stars I've got, because I finally realized I should ask for stars. But whether it's iTunes, Spotify, this, that, the other, give it a nice review, give it stars. And Chris and Corey talked about Film Invasion quite a bit, which makes me proud. Film Invasion Los Angeles happens every June, and if you want to learn about that festival, go to filminvasionla.com, and it's at Film Invasion LA on social media. And its sister festival, the Sherman Oaks Film Festival, that happens every November, which is a month from now. And actually, this podcast will probably come out in November, I think. So check it out right now. Go to ShermanOaksFF.com or at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And now we're going to stop recording. Then we're going to start recording again, because Corey and Chris are going to tell me their favorite films and films they think are underrated, overrated, and people should look up. Because that'll be the next episode, will be them answering the Discover Indie Film 4 questions. So thank you both for doing this.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for having us, Jeff.
Yeah, and thank you everyone who listened.